Welcome to the Career Transition Workshop. This time we will conclude our two-part mini-series that we began last time when we talked about search management. This time, we're going to expand our look at the most important proactive technique with a session entitled Networking Strategy, How to Network from Your Network. What is networking? How does it work? Last time you learned that niche networking is an important proactive job search technique, but networking isn't just something you start when you're looking for a job. It is both an art and a science. Really, it's a way of life. Something that you should always be doing. You need to ask yourself, would you wish that you had started networking a long time before you lost your job? My guess is the answer is probably yes. The problem is most folks think they know all about networking, so they charge out and meet and greet friends and family, and they tell them how they have lost their job, and then they ask them if they know about any job opportunity. And when that proves so unproductive, they abandon networking. This is a waste of time. You know, everyone thinks they know how to network. Reminds me of the guy that went to the hardware store. He told them that he needed something to cut down 2 or 3 trees in his backyard. And the guy behind the counter just rented him one of those chainsaws. Late in the day, the man returns and he's all bloodied up. He's sweaty. He's got sawdust all over him. And then he throws down the saw and starts complaining about it. And the hardware guy apologizes, and then he says, let me take a look. And he starts it up. And the man says, what's that noise? Sometimes you think you know how something works, but you really don't. Some people assume they know how things work, but in reality, they just don't have a clue. We're going to present 9 nifty notes on networking. Let's take a quick look at all 9 before we cover each one in more detail. Number 1, better to build bridges than to burn them by being ill prepared. Number 2, notice you're never not networking. You should always be networking. Number 3, tackle targets. Be proactive. You must have target companies to tackle. Number 4, it's a small world after all. Let's all sing it together now. It's a small world after all. Number 5, let's take a look at social media networking. Number 6, then you'll need to learn to discern what makes a qualified lead. Number 7, you must kiss a bunch of frogs if you're going to find the prince of a job. Number 8, you need to nurture your network to keep in touch. And number 9, let's live the golden rule of reciprocity. So let's begin. The first way to network from your network is to build bridges rather than burn them. You may burn them if you jump into networking before you are ready, before you do these 3 things. First, be properly parted. As we discussed in session 1, accepting the axe, it's a good idea to put your behind in the past. Success comes when you are focused on the future, not preoccupied with the past. Unfortunately, many people fail to recognize the emotional toll of job loss and charge out networking. And when asked about their prior work, their emotions take hold and easily trip them up. Tell me about your last boss. You can't handle the truth. You don't want to be in that. You need to move past any shame you might feel about losing your job. Conquer any anger or any depression before you start serious networking. People want to hear you talk about tomorrow, not yesterday. Secondly, be properly pointed. As we discussed in session 2, career choices and consequences, you need to find your focal point. Find that one targeted position to which you will commit your campaign. Success comes when you narrow your niche and send a simple, single message to the marketplace. Once networking, people are going to ask, what kind of job are you looking for? That's when you've got to nail it. This is me. This is the job I'm after. This is what I do best. This is what I enjoy the most. If you're indecisive, unclear, unfocused, uncommitted, you're going to be unemployed. Job search is like spearfishing, not net fishing. Job search is like using a rifle, not a shotgun. Point at it, hit it. Third, be properly packaged. Success comes when you prepare your promotional package, not simply revamp your recent resume. To be properly packaged, you need 1 2-minute verbal resume, 1 2-page written resume, aimed right at your focal point, an inventory of 5 to 10 attributes coupled with achievements, contact information for each of your references that you've cleared, including company, contact, and character references, an established ACT team, and 200 targets categorized with A, B, C priorities. I'll talk more about that in a minute. So what's the point? If you are poorly prepared, your first contact with your network may cause more damage than good. You only have one chance to make a good first impression. Let's look at networking note number 2. Notice you are never not networking. You are always networking, either in one of 2 ways, networking for enjoyment or networking for employment. Networking for enjoyment is often called an informational interview, where the main purpose is to gather information. In networking for employment or an occupational interview, the main purpose is to respond with information. In both types of interviews, there should be a sharing of information, but the mix varies by type. In information interviews, you want them to do 60% of the talking. In occupational interviews, you should be doing 60% of the talking. Getting the right balance makes for good networking. Now let's look at the process. Networking for enjoyment is similar to strategic marketing. Networking for employment works more like tactical selling. Strategic marketing is all about market research, positioning, and branding. It's about getting the word out to the marketplace concerning who you are and what you do. Tactical selling is getting a one-on-one meeting with someone, getting them to make the right decision, to say yes. Next time we're going to learn all about interviewing tactics, how to pitch yourself. Consequently, when networking for enjoyment, the goal is exposure, marketing yourself to the marketplace. When networking for employment, the goal is getting closure, driving to results. When networking for enjoyment, you gain exposure by meeting new people every day. Not a day should go by without meeting 2 to 3 new people and letting them meet you. When networking for employment, you gain closure by getting an offer. The offer could be an offer to come back or an offer to come to work. If you notice that you're not converging to the end, then you are coasting. And remember, the only way to coast is go downhill. So make progress with each meeting. Finally, when networking for enjoyment, the focus is on building lasting relationships. When networking for employment, the focus is on getting results. One of the fundamental mistakes made in networking is to drive for results rather than relationships. Meeting with someone to get something from them. Maybe a lead, maybe 2 to 3 more names to add to your prospect list. No! Networking is not about you. It's all about how you can help them. If you build a relationship, who knows what kind of results you may receive over the life of the relationship. Now listen up. Here's the secret to networking. Every contact you make, every situation is both an informational and an occupational interview. Each situation will have both a primary and secondary objective. You may meet someone for an informational interview, but if you demonstrate your competence by asking the right questions, who knows where it might lead. On the other hand, during a job interview, if it looks like a bad fit, shift to gathering information about where to go next. So what's the point? Remember, you are always networking. And if you're not networking, something terrible happens. Yeah, nothing. Don't let nothing happen. Let's look at networking note number 3. Tackle targets. Don't randomly roam the range. As we learned last time, in order to be proactive, you need to tackle targets rather than randomly roam the range. Randomly roaming the range is simply asking people you meet for people to meet. So let's say they give you some names. For example, they might give you the name of a recruiter. That should help. But last time you learned that recruiters are specialists. If they don't niche in your niche, then meeting them would be a waste of your time. They might give you the name of a well-connected person they know. That should help. But the person they know who knows everybody is their investment broker. They may be more interested in your 401k than connecting you to their contacts. So meeting them would be a waste of your time. They might give you the name of a friend they know. That should help. But racking your brain, you can't see how that person could help you in the least. So you blow them off and don't contact them. Then the person who referred you to them feels unappreciated. Good luck next time. This kind of networking, moving from name to name, wastes valuable time. You are looking in all the wrong places trying to find a job to replace the one you lost. Reminds me of the guy who's down on his hands and knees looking for something under the street light. A jogger comes by and asks, "Hey, what are you looking for?" The guy answers, "Well, I lost my house keys." So the jogger, being a nice guy, he stops, starts looking as well. When a lady comes along, walking her dog, she asks, "Hey, what are you guys looking for?" The guy answered, "My house keys." And she asks, "Well, did you lose them down there?" He says, "No, I lost them by my front door, but the light's so much better over here." With targets, you know where to look. You look for people who can move you closer to your targets, who can give you information about your targets. You can give you an introduction into your targets. Niche networking is tackling targets. It begins with the end in mind. Shoot, that's exactly what Willie Sutton, the prolific bank robber, did in the 1920s to the 1950s. Once he was asked by a reporter, "Why did he rob banks?" And he answered, "Because that's where the money is." Simply put, if you don't have a target to shoot at, the target defaults to your foot. So here's how you tackle targets. You need to tackle people inside target companies, inside target industries. It starts with selecting your target industry or target industry segment. An example of an industry might be financial services, and an example of an industry segment within that might be banking or credit unions, which are, again, segments of financial services industry. We have told you that track record sells, so in what industries have you worked? In what related industries could you work? What industries would most value your work experience? Targeted industries where you have a track record makes for the easiest search. You may assume that your skills are transferable to various industries. However, remember, hiring authorities tend to make the least cost, least risk, least controversial hires. Consequently, they usually hire people from related industry segments who know their business. They favor what we call domain experience. Alternatively, instead of making a list of target companies from your target industry segments, your list of companies might have something else in common. For example, you could target startups or turnarounds or pre-IPOs or companies doing business in Lithuania. Again, the key would be that you have experience, a track record in working with the companies that share what these companies have in common. Bottom line, you need to develop a list of targeted companies based upon what they have in common, which is usually the same industry. Now, here's a warning. Don't put any company on your list that you don't want to go to work for. That doesn't make any sense. If they're on the list and I happen to know the CEO and can make an introduction for you tomorrow, don't be going, well, yeah, I'm not sure I want to work there. No. Anybody that goes on the list, you want to work for them. How many companies should be on your list? The top 200. Whoa, seems like a lot. Why 200? Well, first off, it works. Never has failed. Been doing this for over 20 years, always had 200. Get all my clients to do 200. 200 works. Identify 200 targets and then work those targets. You will land a job, period. It works. Second, 200 targets aren't 2,000. If you can identify 2,000 targets, you need to tighten your search criteria, narrow it down to be more manageable number of targets. And finally, 200 targets aren't 20. If all you can come up with is 20, you need to loosen your search criteria to find more companies. If 20 is all you've got, just call 2 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon every day, each week, and ask if the person that has the job that you want has died yet. No, just kidding. Expand your list from 20 to 200. Once you have your list of 200 targets, give each one a priority ranking. So you end up with 10% A's, 30% B's, 60% C's. Using whatever criteria you want. It's your top 20 list. You can increase or decrease the size of your list by choosing to loosen or to tighten your search criteria. These same items can also be used to determine your ABCs. For example, geography. If you can only find 50 targets in a local search, you're going to have to consider a regional or national search. Rethink relocation. But at least your A's, your A priority targets can be local. Another criteria could be size. You may have identified 200 targets, but some of those companies may be too small to afford your compensation. Or maybe you need to target small companies because of your age or gender or minority status, like we discussed in session 1, accepting the acts. Another criteria could be type. You might add a criteria based upon the type of company. For example, you may want to rule out publicly traded companies or international companies. In session 2, Career Choices and Consequences, we suggested that you identify what corporate characteristics you wanted to target. Go back and review that list. Once you've got your top 20 out of the 200, you can begin your in-depth research for each of these top 20 companies. One of the things you want to know is the targeted people. Find out who is the hiring authority and to whom do they report. People will network you to people, not to companies. That's the way it works. As you network, have your top 20 in mind. Selectively ask people you meet, do you know or do you know someone or anyone who would know someone or anyone in one of these 3 to 5 companies, 2 to 3 companies? You're not going to give them the whole list of 20, but pick up the 2 or 3 or 3 to 5 that might make most sense when you're meeting with them. As companies drop off your A list, replace them from your B or C list. So what's the point? Targeting people within targeted companies, within targeted industries, creates the most direct and shortest path to your future employer. Let's look at networking note number 4. It's a small world after all. Many people think that networking won't pay off for them because their network is so small. It is not how small your networking is, but how small the world is. And it's getting smaller and flatter every day. So let's look at these circles of contacts and ask the question, how many people do you know? Now, based upon research conducted by sociologist M. Hammer and reported in Social Access and the Clustering of Personal Connections in Social Networks back in 1980, here are their answers. First, let's consider close contacts. These are people whom you have a close personal mutual relationship with. How many close contacts do you think you have? Now think. How many close contacts do you think you have? The researchers' answer is 9. Second, let's consider regular contacts. These are people you meet on a regular basis, but you might not know too much about them. You may know their face, you may know their name, you may not know both. But you see them all the time. How many regular contacts do you think you have? Think. The researchers' answer is 31. So your close and regular contacts is about 40 people. Finally, acquaintances, people you have met sometimes, somewhere, somehow. So how many acquaintances? Researchers would answer over 1,000. People think their network is small because they are only thinking of the close contacts or maybe their regular contacts. Because many of them know one another, they will network you right back to the people you already know. Not very effective. Networking is more about moving beyond your contacts to the contacts connected to others. So how many of you have heard about 6 degrees of separation? Here's what it suggests. If a person is 1 link away from each person they know and 2 links away from each person who is known by one of the people they know, then everyone is at most 6 links away from any other person in the world. It can be proved mathematically. While 6 degrees of separation is interesting, here's what will blow your mind. Instead of everybody in the world, What if we were to narrow it down just to people in the good old USA? What do you think the probability is that person A could be linked to person B with, say, only 2 links? Based upon empirical work conducted by researchers from MIT and a mathematician from Austria, again as reported in Contacts and Influence in Social Networks back in 78, 79, their answer is 50%. That is why we suggest you have a target. You are person A, and your target is person B. You now know that you have about a 50-50 chance, a flip of the coin chance, that 2 links separate you from your target. That is also why we suggest that you ask someone, do you know link 1 or do you know link 2, anyone who would know someone in my targeted company? You have about a 50% chance that the answer is yes. Harvard psychologist Stanley Milgram, whose work was cited in Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Tipping Point, took the theory into the field. His team of researchers distributed 160 packages to people living in rural Midwest, person A. They told them that the package needed to be delivered to a specific person working at Harvard, person B. The package could not be delivered directly, but had to be passed on person to person, link by link, to get there. As the package returned, researchers counted the links. The most was 10. The least was 2. The median was 5 links. But only 25% of the packages made it back. On a repeat study, the researchers were allowed to call to see if the person had moved the package along the chain. With a single follow-up call, the return rate increased to 65%. So follow up with your network when they offer to help move you along. So what's the point? Your network is bigger than you think when you consider how few links are required to make a contact with a target.